Hi, I'm Livvy Hanks and I'm the Economics and Sustainability Programme Manager for Quakers in Britain. This video is a short introduction to the concept of climate justice and how it relates to Quaker work.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Wu and I'm the Campaigns and Advocacy Coordinator for the Economics and Sustainability team at Quakers in Britain.
I'm Oonagh and I'm the Activism Support Coordinator for the Economics and Sustainability Programme of Quakers in Britain.
Climate justice is one of the priority areas of work for Quaker Peace and Social Witness, or QPSW. But what does it actually mean? To understand what is meant by climate justice, we need to start by acknowledging a few things about the climate crisis. First, the climate crisis does not affect everyone equally. The people and countries suffering first and worst in the crisis are those who did the least to cause it. The rich countries which did cause the crisis, like Britain, owe the rest of the world a huge climate debt. They have a responsibility to make the biggest contribution to tackling the crisis. Second, the climate crisis didn't happen by chance. It's an outcome of an economic system built on exploitation of people and planet to create profit for a few. It's a system designed by people, and people can redesign it with different goals in mind, like equality, well-being, and enabling the living world to thrive. Third, the climate and ecological crisis isn't just about the environment. It's about power. It's about an economy built on fossil fuels, and it's tied up with racism and economic inequality. These are all outcomes of that same economic system which values some lives above others and values profit above everything else. There's a long history of rich countries treating other parts of the world as a stock of resources for us to use. Racial hierarchies were invented to justify the murder and enslavement of people in colonized countries and the theft of their lands. The wealth that has resulted from these practices has led to vast overconsumption among the richest, pumping vast amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. At the same time, the systematic impoverishment inflicted by centuries of colonialism has left many countries ill-equipped to deal with the impacts of climate change or to fund a green transition. New technologies aren't going to solve this crisis if the structures of power stay the same. So it's not enough just to cut carbon. We need to do that urgently, but we need to manage that transition in a way that puts decision-making power in the hands of communities and upholds human rights and decent living standards. If we fail to prioritise those things, we risk slipping into worse levels of inequality, violence, and human rights abuses as resources become more scarce. Fourth, the climate crisis isn't something that will happen in the future. It's happening right now. It's been happening for a long time, and the action we take must deal with the impacts that the crisis is already having, as well as moving us beyond the fossil fuel era and reducing greenhouse gas emissions to zero.
Britain Yearly Meeting minuted in 2011 that the environmental crisis is enmeshed with global economic injustice, and we must face our responsibility as one of the nations which has unfairly benefited at others' expense to redress inequalities which, in William Penn's words, are wretched and blasphemous. Quakers care about protecting the living world so all life can flourish. Climate justice means doing that, but it also means understanding how our different struggles are connected. The new QPSW strategy says that the climate crisis, poverty, oppression, migration, and violent conflict are deeply connected. Our current economic system and the historical injustices it is based on affect and exacerbate them all. The changes that are needed to tackle the climate crisis bring opportunities to restructure our economy, our relationships, our lives, and our work to create more peaceful, equal, and loving relationships and communities, rather than dividing people and exploiting the planet further. We need to look at root causes, not just symptoms, and we need to make sure that the way we approach our climate work is rooted in our commitment to justice and peace. Climate science tells us what is happening. Climate justice is one view of how we should respond to it.
So when QPSW started working on climate change about 10 years ago, we placed a lot of emphasis on lifestyle change and making Quaker meetings more sustainable. Support for this is now provided by Woodbrook Learning Centre, and this enables QPSW to focus on collective action for systemic change. It's great to take actions to live more sustainably where we can, but the climate crisis is an outcome of our economic and political systems, not our individual lifestyle choices. We can't take on these systems as individuals, we have to work together to change them. This is the basis of QPSW's climate work and of much of Quaker work over many years. It's important to recognise the climate crisis as a global issue. Many of its worst injustices are on a global level, with the rich world taking far more than its fair share of resources and destroying the life support systems of the poor. So QPSW tries to include an international perspective in our climate work. Sometimes that means focusing on clearly international issues, like calling for finance for communities dealing with the impact of climate change. Sometimes it might mean supporting Quakers to take action in their local community, but always keeping the international connections in mind. We are learning from the international climate justice movement and doing what we can to support it. By being part of collectives like the COP26 coalition, we can learn from others and lend our skills and time to the wider movement. We also work with other faith groups to put justice at the heart of faith-based climate action. Because Quakers in Britain have been investing in this work for a number of years, we have capacity and expertise which we can lend to other faith groups who may be earlier on in their journey. In the run-up to the COP26 climate talks, we have played a central role in the interfaith Make COP Count group, and we've worked with others to ensure that the shared policy aims of faith groups are rooted in justice.
It might sometimes be hard to see how climate justice relates to local action, but there's lots you can do. It's important to learn from the people most affected by the climate crisis, and the rise in webinars has made this easier. We can try to make connections with local work on anti-racism, migrant rights, and economic inequality. Talk to people involved in that work and respect their struggles even if you don't see them as working on climate issues. Collective action can take many forms. It can mean organising in your workplace, or taking non-violent direct action to block fossil fuel projects, or running a local campaign to persuade your council to stop investing in oil and gas, or taking part in a mass action to lobby your MP. All successful movements have many parts and we can all play a role, including the vital work of providing practical, financial, or emotional support behind the scenes. We can also put justice at the heart of how we talk about the climate crisis. We can talk about solidarity with the most affected people and places, and about the need for the UK to do its fair share. And we can talk about the climate crisis as an outcome of our economic system and avoid blaming human nature as though it's something we can't change. To learn more about climate justice and how it relates to Quaker work, you might like to look at our Directory of Climate Justice resources and our Guide to Taking Action. We're here to help friends take effective action for climate justice, so please let us know if there are any other resources or support you would find useful. To receive updates on our work, subscribe to our Quaker Faith in Action newsletter and tick climate justice as an issue you'd like to hear about.